All righty, here we go. This is the Travis Neville podcast. My name is Travis Neville. I had a really cool experience. I've been doing so much trying to kind of market and get my information out there to support the new book. This is just a paper cutout, but I think it looks cool. I'm excited about the cover design. um, anyway, through that process, I had somebody ask me to be on my show, which was a really cool compliment. Because, I'm not that big. I don't have a fuck ton of followers and all that shit. But guy's name's Jake Savicki. He runs a clothing company, and he's also a baseball coach. So we talked coaching and all this cool stuff. It was really cool. I kind of skipped a step in the story. He asked to be on my show, and I'm like, I really don't know how to do that. Like, how to do a Zoom and record it, and so I had to figure that out. And he's like, "I'll help you, man." And so anyway, I figured out how to do that. This guy's in Carlsbad, California. It's like down by San Diego, and coaching baseball and doing making business moves and trying to be the best man he can be. And it was an awesome conversation. What a compliment to have a man like that, say, "Hey, man, I'd like to be on your show." So we figured it out, and we had a nice conversation. We talked for almost 2 hours. I'm gonna play the whole thing for you here if you want to hear the whole thing, and then just enjoy. Cool guy. I'll put up some graphics here on how to get a hold of his TikTok page. It's hilarious. it's hilarious, especially if you have ever coached or really been into any kind of athletics. He posts all kinds of things about sports, and people go nuts for it. So. Check out Jake Savicki on TikTok and on Instagram. And here's our conversation. You guys have a great day.
That's just the gym guys, huh?
Yeah. So tell me, dude, what do you do? Everything you post is about baseball. I've taken it from what I'm picking up that you must coach. Obviously, you were a player yourself. I watched you toss a couple balls and hit them like it was nothing. So you must have played. And now you're coaching. What's the story there?
I played a little bit. I was played at a junior college up north in top of California, Shasta College.
Mm-hmm.
And then out of there, long story short, everybody's got their sob story. Got a full ride to a D2 in New Mexico, and by chance, I have a small heart condition. That's whatever. It is what it is. Nothing crazy. But that was one of the highest altitude schools in the nation.
Oh, no, fuck with
Of
your
all
shit.
the schools. Yep. So I think it was 2 days before I left for school. Talked to the doctor, had a physical, and he's like, your heart's not gonna be able to take the everyday exercise and activity up there. It's, to play baseball at that kind of risk, is it worth it? I'm like, obviously not. I mean, there's so many different options. And then came home because I was already home, but ended up not leaving, and it was 2 days before the semester started at all these schools, and just kind of ended up getting a job in the meantime at a batting cage. And then, long story short, 12 years later, here I am. I'm the head coach at Carlsbad High in California, baseball. So,
all right, man. So you're a high school coach. This is a thing that's near and dear to my heart. I don't know if you picked up on this, but I coach high school football. Yeah, so that's a big deal for me. If you dig real deep, you'll see that there's been some drama, but obviously I'm still involved with the program. My role is just a little bit different now, which is fine. Actually,
I saw that. I can relate to not the situation, but a full understanding that there's always a little microscope and somebody angry enough to find things and send them somewhere. And
and that's on my end. I mean, obviously that's a little embarrassing initially, but my first concern was, hey, I've got such good relationships with these coaches, and in the high school I'm at is very big. There's 30 high school football coaches. It's really big. It's Division I here, what we call it in Michigan, which is as big as it gets. And then of course all the kids, and I mean, there was no lack of support there. So as long as I have those relationships, I'm good. Mm-hmm. But the idea of going through something difficult, like you just shared, the challenges that you had physically to get through baseball, it is what it is. I mean, that's what makes you who you are, without sounding cliche as hell. I've made a lot of mistakes, but I'm still grinding, and there you are. So tell me about the high school experience for you. I mean, is it different? I guess you wouldn't know. I mean, What's California like, man? I guess that's the biggest thing for me. What's the political situation
Hmm.
out there? Because what we hear here
It's
in the Midwest is that like Los Angeles is basically like Escape from LA at this point. Like it's pretty messed up.
yeah,
What's going on out there?
yeah. It's not easy, that's for sure. And there's it's everywhere. I know all the coaches around here, and whether it's there's obviously, this is San Diego, so
Oh, okay. You're
there's
further
schools,
south.
a school, yeah, a little south. So there's school where I'm like, Carlsbad is about 30 minutes north of like downtown San Diego, and then
Okay.
probably about 2 hours maybe from like LAX. So lower than LA, tiny bit higher than San Diego, but it's the same everywhere regardless. I mean, there's schools here with tons of money, and with that comes tons of politics. And then there's schools
And
with,
parents, yeah.
yeah, and then there's schools with no money, and they have the same issues, probably just not as much. So it's been a definite, people ask me all the time, like, oh, you coach baseball? I'm like, nah, I'm just a social worker. I just make people,
That is a
say the
fact.
right things. And the good part about it for me is that there's obvious times where you have to be that guy and you have to say the right things. But
Mhm.
um, I just kind of stopped. You'll appreciate this. I had a guy, when I got the head job, I was here for 2 years as the assistant.
Mhm.
And I'm a big believer in like life guides you where you're supposed to be, as long as you're like putting in the work. You're not
And
going
you're
to
and
be
you're
as
open
lazy
to it,
as,
right? You're not
and you're
closing doors
open
on
to
yourself.
just
Yeah.
finding out. Yeah. So I coached the travel ball team for a couple of years, and I had a guy, um, when that ended, it was just like a 14-year-old team that was there for maybe a year before they went to high school. And I was at the batting cage. Somebody called in asking anyone there coach a team. I said, yeah, I'd never coached in my life. I'm like, yeah, sure. No idea what I was doing. But this guy ended up being, I didn't even know who it was calling in, but he was um, his dad was part owner of the Padres. And then
Not
he
a
and
big
his
deal.
dad, yeah, kind of nice. His dad and his brother, they owned like a vitamin supplement shop, whatever, but vitamins, not like workout supplements, just vitamin shop. And
Sure.
they made the energy portion of Monster Energy drink.
I feel like there's some money attached to that, Jake.
Yeah, this guy was, at the time, he was 37, retired, because his dad and his brother sold it for 200 million and split the money, probably a little more to dad and some of the sons, and he was done. So
Yeah.
coolest guy, you would never know. But anyways, started doing that, and then another guy on the team, once it ended, he was an insurance guy, and I had nothing really going on at the time. He's like, why don't you come work with me? And so this is where it lines up. I did. It was probably, worked with him for like 4 months. He had been in the industry forever, making 300,000-400,000 a year in insurance. And for me at 23, I'm like, sounds nice to me. Let's
And sounds good. I
sign
mean,
me
I know
up.
it doesn't go as far in California as that would here in Michigan, but it's a lot of
Yeah,
money.
yeah. But so I was into that, and that took me maybe 2 months to just absolutely hate it. And this guy took care of me too. Like, I made more money with him than I did anywhere, and up to that point. And I was sitting there one day in the office. I'm like, Frank, I fucking hate this so much. I fucking hate it. He's like, I know, I can tell.
Yeah.
He goes,
That's
you,
not
you
hard.
need to go. Yeah, he goes, you need to get out of here and go coach or do something that you like. He goes, I just wanted to give you an avenue, and there's nothing wrong with exploring it and realizing it's not your thing. He goes, look at me. He goes, I'm 52 and I'm fucking miserable. He goes,
Yeah.
I hate this. So he goes, just get out of here. So I go down in the little, like, we were in a business complex, and there was a place called Big John's breakfast, and then like a German place, bunch of beers. So I go grab 2 beers, bring them back up. I'm like, hey, let's share a beer and cheers to the opportunity you gave me. Thank you. And we'll get out of
Yeah.
here. So we do. And I'm walking from the office. I get all my stuff and see you later. I'm walking from my office to my car, which is a 30-second walk maybe. And he goes, well, what are you going to do? I said, I don't know. We'll figure it out. See what happens. I just know that I can't keep showing up here every day and spending 8 hours hating my life. It's never been me. So
Yeah.
in that 30-second walk from the door to my car, my buddy calls me. He's like, hey, he's like, I just got the head job at Carlsbad High. I need an assistant. And I'm like, holy shit. I guess that's what I'll do. So
Yeah.
I got in
Settled that.
there, and yeah, and that guy lasted 2 years, just I guess well-intended, but not the right guy for the job whatsoever.
So I'm curious about that, and be honest as you can. I know what you mean. When you say not the right fit, I think sometimes that's a diplomatic way to say the guy's just an asshole, but other times there really is a fit issue. Like I
Mhm.
coached at a school further south in Michigan, and the head coach there just really knew his football. He was one of the best practice coaches I'd ever seen. He was excellent in film. Like, he knew so much of this stuff, but he just had this massive glaring issue, and that was his ability to communicate that to his coaches and his players. So he had a big kind of blind spot. And so when I say he's not a fit, he probably would have been great at a college job because those kids have higher football IQs. But at a high school, you got to have that teacher component. So I'm curious, what was the deal with this guy?
He was just he took the job, and he's a big ego guy, and he's my buddy, still is, but big ego. And he also had a 9 to 5 in a tech job that he would get out at 3 o'clock, but practice we have baseball PE here, which is every other day from like 12:30 to 2:30. We just have a PE class that's all baseball. So
it's actually kind of handy. Like, if we could do that with football, we sixth hour here is football lifting, which is super handy.
Yeah, similar. So we get a chance to, through the fall, once they get back to school, travel baseball here in California is like nonstop because the weather, they can play year round.
Yeah,
so
makes sense.
When we get back, I just go, I hired a trainer last year and said, it's all yours. I show up, check in with the guys, but he runs the whole thing.
Lost your video.
Sorry.
There you go.
Yeah, sorry, I had a call come in. So we don't even touch the baseball field for 4 months because I know they're already probably out playing, and I just want to get in the weight room. And sports now, as you know, are so much more physical than probably when you and I were doing it. I didn't.
Yeah, it's all year round too. Every sport is.
Yeah, it really is. It's crazy. So he would be the kind of guy, like, I'll tell you the full story because it's just funny, really. He would show up, like, I'd be there with the assistants, and we'd run a practice because they're there from 12:30 to 2:30, and we're going to do something. We're not going to sit around and wait and then have a 4-hour practice where we really practice for 2 hours. So we'd be like an hour into some practice, and he would show up from work and, his dress shoes and jeans and a button-up shirt, and say, all right, bring it up. And he would give a speech and go stretch. And we're like, well,
we're already going.
Like, let your coach, you got coaches here for this. These kids would rather you show up for that last hour and be there. So stuff like that, where they didn't feel like he was invested. He did a lot of things throughout the course of his time that just, we forfeit a couple games because of rules that he didn't know, wasn't aware of. And that never goes well down here. And you don't know the book, and good luck. And then,
as a coach, I feel like that's, the kids are counting on you for lots of things, but that better be one of them. You should know more about the sport than they do. It's just like being in the classroom. I was a teacher for a long time, and if I don't know my shit, that ain't gonna work. They do. You're right. They can see right. They can see right through it.
Kids are smarter these days. They know when you're invested or not. So he basically, like I said, without going too much detail, he kind of dug his own grave a little bit and wasn't. I think his ego didn't really let him see that he was doing that. It's like every mistake that he made, everyone else recognized it, saw it, and he was like, well, nothing wrong with what happened. It's like, well, there is. Like, this is black and white. There is or there isn't, and there is. So I personally wanted to be there. The school's unbelievable. It's amazing, and our field is one of the best in the state, I could argue, country, because we got a guy that's been doing it since 1960, his field.
Now, so how do you do it out there? We're just switching from natural grass to turf and our all of our facilities. I assume because of I'm just picturing Southern California, it's dry as shit and you can't really grow grass. So is it fake? Is it fake grass? Okay.
No, it's real. I'll show you.
Oh, really?
When we hang up. Oh yeah. When we hang up, I'll send you a picture. There's a guy named Ralph Kripe. He coached there in I don't even know when, but he's been there for literally probably 50 years. He's 80 years old, and he's out there every day doing something. It's like, I'll send you a picture of it. People come in, I'd love to see it. They have to walk onto the infield grass to understand. Like, I tell them, they're like, is that turf? I'm like, no. And they're like, you bullshit. And they have to walk out there and feel it. And they're always like, holy fuck, it is grass. I'm like, oh, well, I wouldn't lie to you. So it's beautiful. The facilities are amazing. Same guy, Ralph, was responsible for, I think back in the early 90s, he had a buddy up in Anaheim Angels Stadium that they were renovating, and he got 300 stadium seats from them. So we're one of the only high schools
cool.
around here with a legit setup, and we're half a mile from the beach. So it's.
Does that mean you're going to be hosting? Because when you have a nice stadium, you're hosting what we'll call like playoffs, regional stuff like that. I assume that you guys are probably the ones who are hosting that stuff.
Yeah, we ask every year. We end up getting like the lower divisions for that because we're in the upper division, and they kind of pick teams that are not going to be playing a home championship.
Yeah, then it's neutral. That makes sense. I mean, that's how you do it.
So we won it this year, which is cool. It was the first time since 1989, which is wild because
wow, it's a long time.
I don't know. And this kind of aligns with a lot of stuff you said. After my first couple of years as a head guy, I was always preaching like history, like this is Carlsbad High, like this is blah blah blah. And then I looked at him like, we haven't won a championship in 30 years. I'm like, what? What am I preaching to? So I like took the
those kids don't remember that shit. They don't remember it.
No, they don't. And if they do, they don't even care anyway. So I said, look, I'm gonna be honest. After I just went through 2 straight losing seasons, which bothered me as a coach, like So I said, I came back after summer and thought pretty deep all summer about what kind of speech do I want to give these guys the first day back, and how do we want to go? And it also helped that our last game of the season was a play-in game to get to playoffs, and I safety squeezed, and we were out by probably a quarter of a step at home. Really? And had I just suicide squeezed, we walk away with the game, no problem, and go to playoffs. We ended up out at home. Next guy struck out, and then they put 3 up on us in the next inning, and we lost, and season over. So,
well, man, Jordan Peterson talks about that. I don't know if you're a fan of his, but I definitely am.
Yeah,
even if you don't, good. Even if you don't do shit, that's a risk too. So maybe you didn't hang it all out there, but you took the risk that you felt the most comfortable with, and shit, you gotta let that ride. I mean, we got lucky on a fake punt and in the playoffs last year, and got past the team maybe we shouldn't have. But it was a risk not to do it too. So as a coach, I hope you're not looking back at that going, damn it, I should have known better. Because that's do what you do, man. You got to take the risks. You have to.
It's a good way to put it. It wasn't like I felt like I should have known better, but I looked at it and said, I'll learn from it. And moving forward, I now know I would feel better if I suicide squeezed and the guy missed the bunt and we got tagged out than I would have executing the play the way I wanted it to, and it still didn't work out. So I came back after that summer. I said, listen, guys, I've been telling you this program's prestigious. We win. We're winners. We're not. If you don't win the whole thing, who fucking cares how many games you won? Like that's kind of the bottom line.
We talk about that too.
Yeah, I said it's been 30 years since this team's won a championship. This is not a winning program. It's your job, you seniors and juniors, to turn it into one before you leave. And I said, so I'm not. Forget about the past. Forget about the history of what this is. Create something while you're here. And you guys, I might be here for 20 years. You guys are only here for 4. So take that time to look back in 10 years when they have 3 CIF championships and you had the first one, and you go, yeah, we set the precedent.
We're the reason it's happening.
So yeah, and it was good. I mean, that kind of for me was when I just started being real. Like I figured if I could tell them this, this program is not a winning program, and they're going to go, yeah, fired up, like let's make it one. And I can just start being real honest with guys. It's changed the way I coached. And the funny thing, you'll love this advice. So when I got the head job, everybody's got advice for you. Everybody under the sun. Oh,
sure do.
Do this. Make sure you do that. Blah, blah, blah. And there's 2 guys talking to me about, they're 2 older guys in their 60s that coached at their time. And they're like, this is what you need to do. They give me the standard, whatever advice. And this other guy's standing there and they leave. And he goes, hey, you want the real advice? I'm like, yeah, what's the real advice? And
I promise not to repeat it.
Yeah, in my head, I'm like, here comes some more, standard, do this, do that. He goes, coach the way you want to coach, because you're gonna fucking get fired anyways. And I'm like, hey,
it's true.
I said, now, well, what if I get fired after 2 years when I could have been here 10? He goes, would you rather do it your way for 2 years or their way for 10? And I said, touche. And it was just such
said.
Yeah. It was the best coaching advice I ever had, because it changed my mindset to if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do what I believe in. And I know that my values are good and pure and true. And I'm not here for myself. I'm here for these kids. And that if anything goes wrong, it's not because I fucked it up. It's because it just went wrong. And being confident in the fact that I'm well intended with things. And I know that I'm kids first. I tell them all the time, like, I don't give a shit that my record is dips when we lose. I care that you guys only have, you guys only have 30 games this year and you just lost one of them. That sucks. I want you to win them all. So
that, and coaching outside of your style. We said this earlier. The kids are gonna smell that like a fart in a phone booth, man. They're not. They can't buy into your shit at that point. They're just like, it's just not. This guy isn't legit. They might not be able to say it, but they'll feel it. You'll never get the best out of them. You'll never get like and that's what we're trying to do, right? I'm trying to put these kids and coaches, man, in the right positions where they're going to develop the best and where they're going to be most successful. Obviously, we want to, winning, I think, comes with that, but it's developing the kids. I mean, I'm sure you have the same philosophy that, high school is it's an adult factory. They come in, they're 14 years old, they're kids. They leave, they're 18. They can go to war, they can vote. We got to turn them into adults in that quick 4 years. And man, our role as coaches, it's way beyond what the teachers are doing. And nothing against the teachers, because I was one for over a decade. But they're going to connect to you, dude, because you're fucking cool. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you're going to talk about life a lot more, because you can, when you're in the classroom, you got all these state standards to get to and all this other crap, but they come out and it's like at the end of the day, and they're like, all right, cool, practice. And I like this guy, and he sees us and he knows us, and I'm with him for 3 hours and all my best friends are here. And your ability to kind of help them as become men. I mean, that's huge. I'm super interested in what you think about that. I don't know how many years you have in, but I started coaching about 20 years ago, and I've watched kids change. Like boys, I would tell you in general, I don't know any other way to say it. They just aren't really as manly as they used to be. And it's obvious that I think fewer and fewer of them have the role models at home. I think that's really what it comes down to. I think there are also a lot of societal factors, and I know you pick up on that when you watch my show, but I wonder if how much of that you're seeing.
I see a lot of it in both, kids I coach and just people in general in the world as it is today, which people know that, but I think we won't get into the big picture of it, but I like to focus on what we both have, I think the big picture is 50-50 all the time. Half the people go, men should be more feminine, and the other half go, fuck that. So, but from what I see, that's a big thing for me too. I tell them, I say, listen, if I teach you guys how to field a ground ball, hit a fastball, sit back on a changeup, make a diving play, and you learn that in 4 years, and that's all you learn, I failed my shit big time. I said, I need you to be, because of me, if you're going to really spend 3 hours a day with me for 4 years, you need to, at some point, whether it's by conversation or by example, be a better student, be a better son, be a better boyfriend, husband one day, whatever it is, like just a better man. So, and I kind of try to go about that with, I tell them all the time, I go, once you guys understand that I love you and I care about you, then I can do whatever I want as far as coaching you. Because if I'm yelling at you, he loves me and wants me to be better. It's not because I pissed him off or this or that. So I try to build that relationship first and pretty quick, just so they know, everything that he says to me is for me. It's better for me to learn and this and that. And that, to your point, I think the reason that it's so much easier for us to communicate, and, like you said, you're a role model, they look up to you because you've probably played the game at a level higher than they have at any point, whatever the capacity, but you're also, nobody wants to go to math class. Nobody wants to go to history. Nobody wants to go to English.
They want to come to practice.
Yeah, they're getting taught by a teacher something that they didn't really sign up for, where you're teaching them something they signed up for and said, I want you to teach me this and get better. So when you do, you're now improving them in a situation that they want to get improved in. They want to be better in. So I think that's a big factor of, like, you're willingly here. It's like a personal trainer. People, do you need one? No, there's fucking YouTube. If you need to learn exercises, by God, but they love their personal trainers because they keep them accountable. I got to go fucking meet Jimmy at the gym because if he's there, he's there, or I just paid for it, whatever it is. But people need something. So I think and people usually love their trainers because their trainers are there for them all the time. So similar as a coach, you're there every day for them. So I do, to your point. This whole, you coach football. So I would be curious, after I kind of explained the baseball manliness. Baseball is
Yeah.
just, it's America's pastime. I guess when you look back at it, it's a lot like football, where the best player of all time is Babe Ruth, who if he played today, he would probably be the Trevor Bauer who got dropped, because Babe Ruth hit bombs, pitched the shit out of the ball. And because there's no social media and nobody saw him smoking cigars, drinking probably 30 beers a night and banging whoever he bangs and back to business the next day. Like, if his life was on display, he probably would have had a hard time dealing with everything. So,
well, and the environment today is different. I mean, you got from when the Babe was playing the Bambino, men were different, man. I mean, there were different expectations. And, I saw a video about Lawrence Taylor the other day. And I mean, he's a guy that you remember when he played, his football guy, right? And I guess he was just like a complete alcoholic, loved cocaine, like strippers, the whole deal. I never heard about any of that shit. It's just a different dynamic. I think that, the teams were like, well, we're going to let him do whatever he wants to because he's so damn good on the field. We got to make sure nobody finds out about it. But I mean, now, that's kind of impossible. You know what I mean? You can't.
It is.
Around it.
It is. It's a whole different world that these kids live in. Everything's broadcasted. But I do think that it has certainly declined. I mean, when I first got here, even I've been here, this will be my, I think, 9th year as 2 as the assistant, 7 as the head guy. The first group that I had as an assistant is night and day from the group I had last year, as far as just, I guess manliness is a funny word, but it just was what it was. They were different. And I try to tell these guys, it's like, I try to show it sometimes too. I tell them, look, this baseball field is our cathedral. Yeah. And I tell them too, I said, this is our cathedral. Like, this is our place. You're going to do things as players and students that I could take up to admin, but I never will. It doesn't do me any good. It doesn't do you any good. We're going to handle it here. I could do something every day. I guarantee I'll do something every day that you can take home to mom or the admin, and I could be fired the next day because I said the word ass or whatever it is. But if you want me to coach you to the best of my ability and you understand why I'm here, I'm not, you guys, I listen to you guys talk in the dugout and shit you say. Like, I'm not going to have a post-game speech where I want to say a lot of things, but instead I'm going to say, we got our stinking butts kicked today. Like, I'm going to look at them and go, we got our fucking asses kicked all over the field.
Dude, you got to treat them. If you want them to act like men, you got to treat them like men, and dialing stuff back and protecting them. And I mean, that's not going to help anybody. It's the whole, and the accountability piece, like you were talking about, back to your trainer thing. Man, I love that idea of the accountability, but I always feel like it's my job to teach them how to hold themselves accountable eventually in the end. I mean, that's really what it is. I always felt like I had a good team. I had a good program established, and I coach track and field as well. So I don't know that much about baseball. So I'm sorry, Jake, but
that's all right.
I always knew that I had a good practice running, or I had a good program going when I didn't even have to be there. When I could walk in and I could just, all right, let's get rolling. And my captains ran everything, and they were completely accountable for their own team, and that, I mean, maybe it's just a track practice. It's not even like a marquee sport, but that's a habit, man. If the habit of, I can handle my own shit. I know what I'm doing here. I'm okay. You empower them and you get them rolling in that direction. And, I mean, that's the key, right? Like I said, it's the adult factory, trying to get them come out the other end for, ready to go.
Yeah, that's exactly, I've said it. We won CIF this year. It was my 6th year as the head guy. And I've told so many people, I said, this was the least amount of coaching I've ever done. I said, these guys, we had 11 seniors, and I got lucky. 9 of them left on a scholarship to go play. And the other 2 that didn't want to, they could have. So we were stacked. We were very good. And I think 7 of those 9 guys went D1. They were very good good team. And I told them at the beginning of the season, I don't need to see any other team in San Diego. I'm telling you right now, on paper, you're the best fucking team there is. I said, it's my job, number one, to get it out of the way and not fuck it up. And it's your job to not just think that being better on paper is going to get it done. You got to go be better on the field every day. That's all I want. And I said, it's one day at a time. Yesterday's home runs don't win today's games.
That's right.
Yesterday's bad things don't lose today's games. And
3 and out, just short memory.
And I learned this too. I over my time, we started like my first 3 seasons, I think 3 or 4-0. And then we lost a game that we played well, but I just got so wrapped up in, winning that we'd lose our first game of the year. We'd battle, do some things wrong. and I'd blow up on them, and they'd all be like, "Fuck this guy, man. We're 4-1.
Yeah,
we
you
play
were
hard,
learning.
and we get blown up on." And
Yep.
so it took me. This year was the first year that I said, "Hey." After I gave the talk about one day at a time, and it started early, like in practice, I show up, give me 2 good hours, and go home and play video games. I don't care. I don't care what's going on before this or after this. I got a wife and kids. If you think every day I'm going to be walking through that door in a good mood, you're wrong. However, I am. I'm going to. Whether I am or not, I'm going to. Same with you. If you just think you failed the test, think about that later.
Girlfriend broke up with you?
Yeah, exactly. I know you guys got your issues, and we can talk about it in my office after practice, wherever, but
anytime,
not here. So they, the biggest thing I learned after trying to go day to day with them was we lost our first game of the season, and I said, "Hey," so that was on me. I fucking sent 2 guys that I should have never sent home. We got hosed by 20 feet. We lost 2-1. If I'd figured out with good hitters up, we win that game. But I said, "So what? We lost. We're done. Game's over. Moving on." And then we would win a game, and I'd say, "Way to do your job. On to the next one." And I always handled the losses the same way I handled the wins, which was,
good one.
Hey, did a couple things right today, but we fucked ourselves. What are you going to do? Flush it, practice tomorrow, get ready to win. And they never lost back-to-back games all year, which I think is probably the thing I was most proud of.
That's actually awesome. I just got into sports gambling this year. So I'm using DraftKings. I've never done that before, but I'm realizing that the good teams, if they lose one, always bet on them to win the next one. It's like a super safe bet. But really you mentioned that treating the wins and the losses. You ever heard of this poem? It's called "If." I'm sure you've heard of Rudyard Kipling. He wrote the Jungle Book. You probably heard, read it when you were a kid. Well, he wrote some poems too. Anyways, one of them's called "If," and he has this line in there. It says, "Meet with triumph and disaster and treat those 2 imposters just the same." And I think that's huge. That's a line that I'll use with my kids. I'll text it out to my leadership group. Like, if we lose one, which is rare, but if we lose one, "Hey guys, what do you think this means?" And you just never get too high or too low, just like you're talking about, man. And I think that's not just a athlete skill. That's very much an adult skill. Like if you're in any kind of leadership position, even if you're not, man, getting too low over something bad that happened, I mean, that's a snowball effect. It's going to get worse and worse. I mean, celebrate your wins, of course, but also in any kind of leadership role. Jake, you said you're a father and a husband. I mean, you have a leadership role in your home, whether you like it or not. This is how it is. You have to be able to, they're looking to you, man. Your kids are always looking to you like, well, is this a big deal or not? Let's look at Dad, see how he's reacting. You know what I mean? And that, hey, don't get too low on the lows. Don't get too high on the highs, because there's more shit coming. You know what I mean? That's huge.
Yeah.
Glad to hear you say that.
There's a football player that I use that quote in baseball all the time too. I don't remember who it was, but he was in an interview, and I think one of his coaches passed away, and he was an NFL guy, and he talked about, he goes, the one thing that he always would say to us is, when it's going good, it's not that good. And when it's going bad, it's not that bad. He goes, it just kept us here. And I tell my guys all the time, they go up 4 or 5-0 in the 3rd inning. I go, it's just a lead till the game's over. It's not a win. Because you're right. It goes both ways. If you go downhill when something bad happens, it snowballs. And if you start coasting because something good happens, then that's going to turn around too. So it's kind of like, this is nice that we have this lead, but it better be 12-0 before that 7th inning ends and we're winning. But so, and in life too, I mean, I am a big believer in celebrating the good stuff. I think life in general is tough, and a lot of it for guys like us who are in the athletic world, I think they commingle so much. It's unbelievable. I mean, to me, I tell my guys all the time, baseball is so friggin' hard. It's the only sport where, if you're playing football and you run a perfect route and your quarterback throws a perfect ball, and you catch it, barring any penalties, you get those yards. That's the way it works. You did your job right. He did his, and you win. If you're a hitter and a guy throws a pitch and you're sitting on it and you hammer it, it might go right to somebody and you get punished for it. You did your job perfectly and you get screwed. There's an amount of luck to it. So it's this game is tough. It's just like life. There's times where you are going to be busting your ass, working hard, and some teammate that doesn't bust his ass and doesn't work hard is naturally more talented than you. He's better. He's probably going to put much better stats up, and he's going to start over you. It's just, I tell him, I go, wait till you get a job one day and you bust your ass for a year for your promotion, And Jimmy, who sits there with his feet up on the desk, gets the promotion because he's the boss's cousin.
That's right.
Like,
Yeah, boss's daughter's boyfriend, some
yes,
shit.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's like that stuff in life, the quicker you realize it's not fair and it's not fair for anybody, then who cares? You're good. Then it makes it all pretty fair because we're all getting fucked the same. It's like, life doesn't pick people out and go, I'm going to give it harder for you than someone else. But
yeah, that's another Jordan Peterson thing, man. He loves the idea that you make your boat stronger because there's nothing you can do about the damn water. You can't stop the damn ocean or the flood, but you can make yourself better. And ultimately that leads to you competing with yourself and a little bit better every day. Like you were talking about, let's stay even keeled and, just get better every day. And those habits, I had one coach in high school for me, and he happened to be my track and field coach. Had him for 1 year for one season of one sport. And guy really impacted me, man. I had him for 10 weeks, man. Track season in high school is pretty short. And this guy just laid out some real basic things. Like he was really hard. He was a military guy. He was really hard on us, and he was kind of a dick, and he pushed us real hard, and he expected a lot. But it just impacted me, man. My dad was a coach too, so I probably would have gone into doing what I was doing anyway. But I ran into him coaching at one point, and it was at a track meet, and I beat his ass, which was really cool. Like I won, like I beat my hero's track team. So nice, anyway, and he said to me, nothing's more important. Nothing should ever get in front of the habits that you give the kids, whatever, no matter what. If it's, you can win a state championship. If you let this one kid play who missed practice all week, you can't do it. You can't do it because what you're teaching them is that your ability is more important than your work ethic. And you and I both know this. Your natural skill set, your athletic ability, your gifts, I suppose, we'll call them talents. Those help you a lot in athletics, but it's work that gets you going, gets you good at anything else. Else, any job you want to be in a relationship. Nobody's naturally gifted at being a husband. Like you gotta work at that shit. If maybe you have a little bit of ability with math, so it makes you a little better accountant, but you still got to bust your ass every day. So teaching those habits of I think you get what I'm saying, man.
I agree. I say it all the time. These guys, I tell my baseball guys, I go, these people that are in the big leagues are insanely talented by birth. Like baseball is so difficult. You have to have the natural ability to hit an 85-mile-an-hour slider. That's not normal. It's just not normal. They have better hand-eye coordination. They have better, probably quick twitch muscles. But there's a million of those guys. The ones you see on the TV are the ones that have the work ethic that matches the natural skill. Like I've seen so many guys that come through my program that I go, that's a D1 player, and he ends up not playing at all, or plays a half a semester at D1, and when he realizes everyone else works hard, he's like, oh fuck, I'm out. So it's like you got to have it. You got to have it first. I think to be a professional athlete, you got to have it first, and then you got to work. Yeah,
and it's super common, like you said.
Few guys. Yeah, very few guys too that, they love to put the stories out there. Like this guy didn't play in high school and went to a D3 and now he's in the NFL. It's like, that's called work ethic, bringing out what he naturally had. He probably didn't start working until somebody said no scholarship for you, and he's like, what the fuck? And then he went to a junior college and grinded it out, and then went somewhere else. And then the more he worked, the more those natural talents said, we're here. You just got to develop us. So. I think you're exactly right with that. I mean, and sports are one of the only places where your natural talent takes you farther. You could have a lot of natural talent in life, but what, like you said,
exactly. We're not Forrest Gump, you mean, you got to be able to you got to work hard.
Got to do something. I mean, you're good at math. That's great. Now go find a profession where that plays and work hard and
be better than the other guy who has natural ability. I've seen him. You've seen him crash and burn 1,000 times. Like you said, the kid who has unbelievable ability, but as soon as he gets around people who have that same ability, generally it's because they never had to work. That kid in middle school was always so much better than anybody without having to do shit. And then he gets to high school and it's pretty much the same thing. And then college, like you said, you go for a year and you're like, oh, whoa, I got to work. I don't know how to do that. And I think that sometimes happens academically too. I've heard that from people that, when I got to college, I had to study. You know what I mean? I never had to in high school, but so you do, sometimes you hit that wall, but that is super common to have the kids. I had a track kid who, he was these are numbers that probably won't mean much to you, but Kid was a 6'10" high jumper, which, I mean, that's a state championship at any level over here. And he just didn't want to, he just didn't take the ACT, didn't want to, which is like the college entrance exam. You know, I had him all set up with Central Michigan University. They were going to have him sit for the ACT with them. Like, they were going to basically hold his hand through everything. And he just didn't show up that day. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and I wonder what's going on in their heads. I wonder if it's a, you know, what if it's a fear thing. You know, I wonder if I'm afraid to fail. Once I do try, if I fail, then I suck. Then there's something wrong with me. I wonder if I've always wondered if that's what's happening. But every kid who's ever done that, they're off to college. I never get to ask them. I don't know if you have any experience with that. I wonder what goes on in their heads.
I've experienced it and I've never really dove too deep on the kids because I have them in high school when it's going on, and you know, our job is to pick them up, not really break into like, you're struggling, you don't look like you're handling it well. Why? They're going to go, well, I don't know. So I've seen it for sure where that kid is dominant when he's 10, dominant when he's 12, dominates when he's 14, 16, goes to varsity, hits $190, 210, and just doesn't handle it. Just can't handle it. And instead of working, they go, oh, I'm just going to ride this out and go be done. It's like, you've never experienced the failure, and it's a bummer. It's a bummer that you haven't. And for me,
failure's huge. It's super helpful.
It is. I was just talking to my dad about this at Christmas, actually, which is funny because he was, and this goes to kind of the masculine side of where you and I are probably confused with how the tide is turning to this feminine male thing. I mean, my dad was a bodybuilder. He's worked at UPS for 35 years, retired at 53 or whatever he did. But he was like a legitimate bodybuilder, like on stage in Arnold Schwarzenegger thing. So to me, growing up, when I'm watching a roided out guy, you know, have his outbursts and I'm also looking at him like he's Superman because he's so fucking big and strong. And, you know, I'm like, that to me was what I saw. Like I was 13 one time, and he told me he worked UPS night shift, 3 p.m. to 3 a.m. and, hey, make sure you do the dishes, pick up dog poop. I said, all right, sounds good. I forgot to do the dog poop. He ripped me out of bed at 3 a.m. when he got home, set me out there in my boxers, with a flashlight. So I told you to pick the poop up. You didn't do it. I said, all right, sounds good. And that was the last time I ever forgot. Like,
I bet it was, man. You know, that kind of accountability, man, that's some huge shit. So I don't know if you ever heard of Ryan Mickler, but he's another guy who kind of does what I do. And he was telling this story about he's sitting at a football game with his wife, and his son's out there on the field, and the son obviously misses a block, right? And the coach pulls the son, yanks the son over, and just lights him up. You know, you fucked up your assignment. I don't know what he said. He probably didn't swear at him, but you messed up your assignment. He really got loud with them and really lit him up. And it was obvious from the stands. This is Ryan talking about it. And he's like, it was obviously missed the block. He said, but I'm like holding my wife back, like trying to get her to keep from going down there and, you know, going full Karen on this guy. But what he loved was a little bit later, he saw the coach put his arm around him, say, you've had that conversation, right? Where you're like, hey, man, now you know I had to light you up because you can't do that shit, but blah, blah, blah. My guess is your dad probably did the same thing, but Ryan probably, his kid ain't going to miss that block anymore. And that accountability is so damn good for them. You know what I mean? You need to know when you mess up. Those failures are huge. And man, I would so much rather have them screw up, you know, on the football field with me at 16 or 17 than me not teach it to them. And they go and they fuck it up at 25 and now they're divorced or they're going to jail or some shit like that. Fuck up with me, man, because I'll help you. I'll get you better. The world won't. The world won't, man. So mess up as much as you can. You know what I mean? And my guess is I was probably thinking that same way. He'd rather have you fuck it up now.
Similar guy, and he picked me up after half the time, and half the time he didn't because he didn't need to. You know, he knows. Him coming and saying it after a certain amount of time was like, I already know, Dad. I know what to do. I know. Yeah, you don't need to come apologize to me, but it was like, it's hard for me to watch. And I have a bunch of great kids and families. So this is just over the years, you see it here and there. And really in general, in all activities for kids is, I can't imagine, like my daughter, she'll do things and I'm like, go ahead. And she won't do it right. And I'm like, oh, bummer. You lost, you know, whatever. And I watch these families that it's like, they go to such great lengths to make sure their kid doesn't fail or experience failure, or it's not your fault. And I'm like, my dad.
You're handicapping the kid. You're handicapping.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I was in I did karate, kung fu, and jujitsu, martial arts from age 6 to 16.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll never forget one kid named Tommy and another kid named, I think, Aaron, that we would always spar and grapple and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And this is what I was talking to my dad about at Christmas. I'm like, I mean, I think it played in my life at the time, and it's played ever since without me really knowing, because I don't look too deep into things sometimes, and and try to figure myself out, because I feel like I'm good from that standpoint. The more I dig into things, the weirder and less answers you have anyways sometimes.
Yeah, just get to your conclusion, then move on. Yeah, I get it.
And I was telling my dad, he goes, what was your favorite thing about, martial arts and this and that? Because we were just talking about it. And I said, honestly, I just loved doing it. I was good at it. I enjoyed fighting, grappling. I enjoyed all of it. But in hindsight, like looking at what it did for me, I was from age probably 8 to 10 when I started grappling and sparring, and you really kind of are actually now a little old enough to throw some punches and get hurt and choke kids out and tap kids out. And I said, I mean, looking back, I see the kids now that I coach, and like we just talked about, avoid failure and stay motivated and excited. I'm like, I would go to karate 4 days a week, Monday through Thursday. And I might go Monday and grapple and get fucking tapped out 3 times in front of the whole class and the parents. And it was fucking embarrassing. It was horrible. And then I would go Tuesday and I would tap Tommy out 3 times and go, fuck you, man. That's what I'm talking about. And I'd feel good. And then I'd go spar somebody and get my ass whipped and come back the next day. I said, to constantly spend
that's
10
life,
years,
man.
Yeah, to spend 10 years of getting beat and then 24 hours later seeing the same guy and figuring out how to beat him and a different guy. It was like, that was the best thing that ever happened to me, is learning to say, yeah, you guys might be looking at me going, that sucks, you got tapped out, but you're fucking sitting in a chair watching me. I don't give a shit. Like I'm out here doing it, and that's fine.
Yeah.
I would rather come out here and spend this 30 minutes grappling with the guy and, tap him out 3 times and he taps me out 6 and we shake hands after, and we're a couple men at that point, 12 years old, going, yeah, good shit. We're both sweaty and bleeding a little bit. And that to me, I don't see that anywhere where it's like,
well, there's bumpers on everything. You know what I mean? Like you said, parents want to, and I keep catching these videos that pop up on my feed of these kids who are wrestling, doing exactly what you're talking about. They're out there and they're wrestling, and some kid does this very aggressive move on another kid, and the kid who's the victim of that move, all of a sudden his mom's on the mat. Can you imagine that shit happening to you, dude?
I saw that.
Can you imagine that? Oh, it blows my mind. Like that right there is the fucking problem at this point.
Yes.
Come on, Mom. You got this is what we're talking about. You've got to be able to fail. You've got to be able to take some shots, and because that you have to learn how to get the fuck back up. You got to learn how to do that, and you did, man. That's hugely helpful. I mean, you've had other failures in your life, man. You've had other things that have happened since you were an adult that sucked, and you probably should. You're more able to shake it off. You're more able to shake it off, and man, if I got to pick one, see, everybody talks about delayed gratification being the best predictor of success in adulthood. But I'm going to tell you that the most important skill that you can possibly have is being able to get the fuck back up after you fail. How successful you are at that. Can you get up? First of all, how long does it take? Are you better at the end of it? What's your self-talk during all that? I mean, there's so many pieces there, and we as coaches, we are modeling each of those pieces. We might actually walk out there and physically pick them up, and then we're the voice in their ear, and that's the self-talk. And all of these pieces we're giving to them. We're letting them know this is how this is supposed to go, and they won't even realize it, man. I had a coach talking one time. I was at a football conference, and he said, people ask me, hey, well, how'd this year go? How'd your season go? And he's got this line that's now kind of cliche, but he says, you got to ask me in 20 years. Because that's when I'll know what kind of men these guys are, right? What kind of sons they are, what kind of fathers they are, what kind of employees they are. And it's true. I mean, like I said, it's cliche now, but it's really good shit. But that guy, he knows that. You know what I mean? And these kids, most of them, they just have these habits, and they don't know that it was Coach Savicki that gave it to them. And I don't need that. I don't need them to know that it came from me. I like to, that's about the only reason I have Facebook at this point, is so I can watch what my kids are doing as adults. Watching them raise their kids and doing all this cool shit.
It's awesome.
It's very satisfying, and I don't need them to pat me on the back. I really like to pat myself on the back when I see that shit. Because you got a little hand in that, dude. You do. You got to change a life. You got to help somebody become happy. Fuck, you can't put price tag on that shit.
No, you can't. And to your point, the 20-year later thing is real, and it's good. I sent a kid to college this year, and I asked him, I texted him, 3 months in, whatever, he'd been there. And I said, how's it going? He's like, yeah, it's all right. I said, well, what do you mean all right? He's like, well, coaches just don't seem like they really care, or this or that. I'm like, well, do they teach there too? Maybe they're, maybe they're busy sometimes. And he's like, no. I'm like, oh. And he just kind of talked to me about how he didn't feel like they were invested in the team and the kids and this and that. And I immediately texted my college coach, which now I've been out of there 15 years. I said, hey, I sent him the screenshot of the conversation with the kid. And I said, I just want to thank you for always making it feel important. I never once felt like this with you. Like, I never felt like, because I still talk to him and I've sent him a kid too. I said, I just want you to know that I never felt like this wasn't a top priority to you. And I want to thank you. I was only there for 2 years, and for 2 full years, it was important, and I appreciate it. And he goes, man, this couldn't have come at a better time, because I just cut the team from 55 kids down to 25, worst day of the year, when I got to tell 30 kids, see you later. And we had a good little talk about it, but he goes, seriously, thanks. I needed that. I said, thank you. I'm not bullshitting you. I wouldn't have sent it if I didn't feel that way. So,
oh man, that's huge. Now that you're doing it, you get how much it means to hear that shit.
Yeah, exactly. So I do. I think that you pick things up, like you said, as you go along. And I've always said that. I said, I don't want you guys to leave here with a notebook of things I've said or done. I want you to go through a situation in 8 years, handle this a certain way, and go, oh, fuck. Yeah. Coach Jake kind of taught me. I think that was something he probably instilled. But like you said, the losing is, let them lose, man. I tell them every time, I go, the only difference of losing this game, if you worked hard, I mean, it's annoying to lose when you give one away because you just didn't show up. I said, but if you work hard, the only difference at the end of the day is the scoreboard. Like, you're still going home, showering, eating the steak and potatoes your mom is probably making, and
mom still loves you.
Bed, so you're probably going to jump in the jacuzzi and play video games. Like, nothing changes other than the scoreboard and the feeling. But that to me is like, that's where you got to learn. It's not that big of a deal, but for those 2 hours, it's the most important thing. You don't have your phone at the game. You're not talking to anyone else. This is the most important thing you're going to do for 2 hours.
Yep.
And when it's over, it's not actually important. It's done. It was a game, just like anything else. Like, you're really good to your wife on Tuesday. That's nice. You're there. It's important. But that doesn't mean shit for Wednesday. It's over.
That is the truth, buddy.
So
it's the truth.
I think, and that's to me, like, trying to crack the pressure. And I think this goes a long ways too. The more they lose, the less pressure they feel in everything.
That's true.
Dave Roberts is the manager of the Dodgers. He's a good buddy of mine. I coached this kid down here. He lives here, and he talked to me one day, and I said, do you feel like, do you see like your guys feel pressure at times? They're big leaguers. They're on the Dodgers. Like,
it's a good
he goes, no, he goes, we got a saying. He goes, pressure only exists in tires. And I'm like, that's pretty awesome.
That's pretty cool.
It took me a minute to think about it. And I'm like, what does that? I'm like, man, tires. And then when I thought about it, I'm like, okay, like, makes sense. And he went on to talk, and this is similar to any football game. He goes, think about the first inning when there's 2 outs, nobody on, it's 0-0, and you're up to bat. He's like, do you feel pressure? I'm like, no. He's like, what are you trying to do? He goes, I said, trying to get a hit, beat the pitcher. I don't know, get on base. He goes, okay, bottom of the 7th, tie game, 2 outs, bases loaded. What do you feel? I'm like, pressure. He goes, why? He said, what are you trying to do? I said, trying to get a hit, he goes, it's you and the pitcher, no different than it was in the first inning. He goes, you just let all the outside shit and the worrisome feelings get to you. He goes, but
that's easy to say though, dude. That's fucking easy to say.
No, for sure.
It's hard to do. Sure.
And that's where I think the only way to really alleviate the pressure, because pressure is good. It means you give a shit, I think. But
I very much agree. Very much agree.
And I think, yes, and I think the only way to alleviate some of it is that feeling of, this is a cool moment. I get a chance to do this. If it works out, awesome. If it doesn't, live to see another day. We'll play tomorrow or whatever it is. But
just thinking, if I've ever tried to teach that to my kids. I really believe what you're saying, dude. That's good shit. I wonder how,
like,
because that pressure will make these kids buckle. I mean, because you and I, we're adults, right? We don't have peer pressure, but I'm sure, remember how big of a deal that was. You know what I mean? You're up there and your whole team's looking at it, and these are all your friends, and your family's in the stands, and your coach is watching, and that pressure thing's a tough nut to crack. But if you can get to where you can get these kids past that shit, dude, you're doing it right.
I think that's a big reason why I like to coach it so much, because it handicapped me big time. I was a big pressure guy. I put it on me. It was the most important thing in the world. I had a bad day. I was bummed for 3 days. Like, I think in being that, and that's what we do as coaches, what made me less successful. And if I recognize it in you, I'm going to try to break it out of you so you don't do that. So learning from our success and failure is a big deal, but that's where, to me, this is just like in football. If you got a guy wide open streaking down the sideline on the second drive of the game, that quarterback's going to go, oh, yeah, he's going to let it fly, and that receiver's probably going to go sweet. You do that 13-13 with the last play of the game, and this guy's just as wide open. That quarterback's going to go, oh, fuck, I got to make a good throw. And that guy's going to see it in there and go, oh, fuck, don't drop it. Like, it's the same play. It's just different. And like we said, the pressure is good. It means you give a shit, and it gets a focus, I think, in your mind, and learning to kind of fear and pressure are similar in the fact that if you can embrace them, they're going to launch you in some pretty amazing places, I think.
Yeah. For sure. Kids are just so fun, dude. They, I don't know, man. Like, I'll see them walking around and they'll talk about, like, they're just, when you kind of catch them hanging out with each other and they kind of don't know they're not paying attention to you, and just talking about the new AirPods, or they're like, oh, did you hear what so-and-so did in class today? And it just reminds me, what it was to be that age and to be doing, to be living that life. It's awesome. I mean, there were so many,
it's the best.
It just swirling around you. And then all of a sudden, boom, you're out of it. And this is a thing I tell the kids a lot, that no matter what you do in your life, it's going to be a memory for way longer than it is going to be what you're doing right now, no matter what it is. Like this today, fucking, what is it? Monday, December 27th, 2021. I'm going to remember it for way longer than you and I are here actually talking about it. You know what I mean? And having that perspective, I don't know. It's just a cool thing to watch those kids.
That is I've never really thought about that. I think that's I guess a good way. I've never heard that, and I like it a lot. I think the best way to put that is that memory is going to last a lot longer in the moment. It's like, so
do something that you want to remember. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, me and you will talk for 2 hours, and I'm sure when we're 80, we're going to go, I remember that. Yeah. It's a good time. We shot the kid about coaching, and we were strangers, and by the end of it was good. And who knows what happens after this, but it is. And it's kind of like puts you in the moment. I think that's what people need the most, is to learn how to just live right here, right now.
Yeah. I think that speaks to your point, dude, I think that might be a pressure defeater as well, to be like, hey, here I am in this moment that might never happen again. I'm facing down this batter, or I'm facing down this pitcher. And man, what a cool thing. All the work I did got me to this right here. And I want to remember something good. So I'm going to do what I do. But more about your shit, dude. I want to change gears here a little bit. What got you going on making the videos? Because they're hilarious, dude. I watch your shit, and I got to learn how to do the two different, like, be this guy and then be that guy. I've got some video editing software, like I can do some stuff, but I haven't figured that out yet. What got you going on it, and why'd you kind of take the angle you're taking?
I don't know. I'm like a lot of people. When Corona rolled around, I started a TikTok. I started a TikTok, and I was like, oh, this is something for 16-year-old girls that look like they're 25 and really feminine boys that dance. That's what TikTok was. I'm like, this is ridiculous. I'm 35. Like, this is no place for me. And then there's a weird piece of that, because when Corona rolled around, you didn't see anybody. You don't see anyone. So the stuff, like, I would do things where I'm like, I don't have to make this stupid video and then go see 30 kids at practice and go, nice video, coach. I'm like, I didn't have to think about that. And it started with, I made a video about, and you might have seen this on Barstool back in the day.
Love Barstool Sports.
Yeah, they reposted a video of mine, and then it blew up, and that was the first time I saw social media like, well, this is like a real thing. I had people reaching out for sponsorships, or hey, can you we're going to send you this, send you that. And I'm like, okay, there's like some avenues here to do things, but it was a video
holy
game
shit.
thing where
I didn't realize this, man. I'm flipping through your shit right now. Here's one video, 1.4 million fucking views, dude. Well done.
Well some done. Of them get going. Yeah, they get going. One of the first ones I posted was the one that went viral was a video game one, and I don't even play video games. I told my wife, I literally sat there and I said, hey, let's the video game one's probably way down at the bottom, but it was one of the original ones. So,
keep going, man. I'm listening.
I told my wife, I'm sitting there and I literally said, like, randomly, I was barbecuing, and I'm like, hey, let's make a video that will like trigger the gamers. And she's like, what does that mean? I'm like, just do this. So I said, I'm going to play this video game, pretend like I am. You walk up and record me, and then record yourself turning the PlayStation off. And then I'm going to get up and go, why? And you just say,
that was you?
That was me.
Holy shit, dude. I didn't even recognize you. Yeah. Like, I thought it was like an ad for, anti-feminism or some shit. Or my wife's beating me or some shit. Like,
yeah,
that's what that was going on. I mean, I think I commented on that shit before I knew who you were.
Probably have. Yeah. And the crazy thing about that, I looked at it, I went, so many people were just all over it, and I didn't expect it at all. I mean, I literally went out, made it, barbecued for 20 minutes, came back, it had like 2,000 views. I'm like, oh, look at this thing's going. And then within an hour, it had like 80,000. And then every time I opened TikTok, I had 99 plus notifications. I'm like, oh shit. And then Barstool posted it and all this, but people were going from my TikTok, seeing the video, going to my Instagram, finding the first picture of me and my wife and being like, you need to leave that bitch. This fucking, I'm like, okay, everybody. Like, my wife was so pissed. She's
but that's what it is, dude. Like, you and I know that shit, that world isn't real. The stuff that you see on, I mean, it's not real. So, but for a lot of people, that's their reality, dude. And it's so damn sad, but it's a caricature. Yeah. It's just like it's a cartoon. And a lot of people think that's some real shit. So that's funny. That's funny that happened to you.
That's, I think, where it just started, from a sense of like, okay, this can be like a thing. This can actually be a thing, where if you do it right, there's money here. I had a podcast actually before Corona. It's called Appreciate the Patience. I think you could probably find it somewhere, but
I'll look for it.
Similar. I don't know how many episodes, just some fun stuff. People, mainly like athletes that I know, and I would just kind of pick their brain a little bit on. It was more about kind of hearing their story than it was, whatever. So, but I've been in social media a little bit to where, I saw the potential value in having a personality, and going, you're telling me all these people are making money by literally being themselves?
Just like, by fucking being, but see, and that's what we were talking about before too. The idea that you try to fake some shit, nobody's going to hook onto it. Nobody's going to grasp a hold of it.
So my whole thing kind of evolved into sports after, and TikTok's a big time algorithm thing. Like, if I post a baseball thing, they're going to push it out. If I post, I think the last 2 football videos I posted from the game last night they're blowing up just because. But
yeah, I get your game videos, your football game videos.
So, the football ones. Yeah. So they, if I were to just do like a random, oh, I think this is funny and it has nothing to do with sports, it'll get 500 views. I'm like, how the fuck do you have 80,000 followers and you get 500 views? I'm like, TikTok is weird. So you just got to stick to your thing. But so my thing is sports, and it's gone in a lot of different ways. I've talked some coaching stuff, which I got to be careful with, because, I can't give the behind the scenes, what it's like for coaches versus parents. And I'm like, yeah, that'll get me fired quick. But so I just, I enjoy sports, and that's where I think I'm knowledgeable. So I can just, every video that I have on there that has 500,000 views or more took me 10 seconds. I'm like, oh, that was a funny play. I hit rewind, I film it, and I talk over it, and I post it, and I'm like, of course. And then I spend time really trying to do a good video, and it's like, hey, you got 400 likes. I'm like, good stuff. So,
oh, dude, it's the same for me, man. I mean, my shit goes everywhere, and really, I'm an author. That's my main thing. I write books, and but this stuff really is just there to support that. But I'll do the same thing, dude. I'll spend a week research in to do this great show about psychology and philosophy and all this academic bullshit and research, and that fucker will get nothing. But the one where I'm just kind of shooting the shit, all of a sudden people love it, man. You know, I don't get it.
It's like you say something that, because you're so involved with it, to you it's researched, it's deep, it's really meaningful. It's kind of a groundbreaking thought.
Yeah, right.
And you put it out and they're like, cool. And then you put something out that's kind of common sense to you and everyone's like, oh man, that's yeah.
What do you think that is, man? Do you think it's that people are just fucking stupid, or do you think it's that on TikTok people are young and inexperienced so they don't get it? Which one is it, youth or retardedness?
I don't think there's very many smart people out there. I really, and I don't say this like,
I hate hearing you say that because I don't want to believe it, but I know that's what it is. I know it.
I'm telling you, the more I pay attention to just everything, I'm like, my God, like, this is crazy. My best friend asked me a while ago, he's like, I'd love to pick your brain on like the way you know, what your process is to breaking things down and thinking. And we've been best friends since we were 5 and 30 years. And he's different than me, but he, I won't say looks up to me, but he's always paid attention. We've been connected. So he sees the way I do things, and he doesn't do certain things that way. And his life has gone a path of more struggle just because of the way he's done things. And he always asks me like, you know, you said this or you said that, like, what did you mean? I'm like, dude, I put no thought into that. Like, to me, that's the logical first thing that comes to my mind. And for me to think that that's some deep thought for other people is mind blowing. Like, what other
disappointing is what it is, man. You know what I mean? Like, it makes you like, I wish more for the world that ain't there.
Yeah. Like, I want to feel like a genius. Like we just talked about, when I research and think and come up with some groundbreaking thought, I don't want to feel like a genius when I handle a regular day situation better than apparently 99% of people would. It's like, what are we doing out here?
But there's value in that shit too, man. I mean, these are people who might not have gotten that conclusion. There is. You know, I look around, the people who are just soaking up unemployment and you know, in my mind, making just bad decision after bad decision, and that's maybe the best they can do, dude. I mean, it's kind of sad, but it is what it is. Like, all right, well, shit, man, maybe I can't expect this of you. You don't have it in you, you know? All right.
I've said it before. It took me a while to just learn to lower the expectations. It's not because it's less disappointing for me, but because that's where they should be. I mean, that's where the expectations should be. And people, and you know this, you're smart people, until they learn otherwise, like me and you, I think you go through a portion of your life expecting other people to think like you and not in a way like you should be like me, but if you're smart, a lot of things seem like common sense.
They seem so you would
expect a lot of people to know this or feel that way or look at it a certain way, and when they don't, you're like, I just got to lower the bar. I mean,
it blows your mind.
It's not even that maybe I'm not that intelligent, but you are just not even close. You know, so I think that was something for me, that lowering the I tell my wife all the time, she'll talk about people and their decisions. I'm like, hey, they're not smart. What do you want me to, it's not smart. That's why they don't, these people don't have money because they're not smart with their money. It's not, they make enough money to have money, but they're always broke because they're not smart. That's
well, you know, and I think there's a cultural piece to it too. I mean, I read this, I taught at a school. One of the schools I taught at was really low socioeconomic status, right? These kids didn't have a lot of money, you know, it was like 90% single parent households and just a lot of fucking problems. And I read this book because I didn't want to believe that it was a race thing, because I just couldn't make that make sense to me. So I read this book, and she talks about the 3 levels of class in the U.S., right? So there's middle class, you and I. There's the upper class, which you and I don't really understand, and then there's a lower class. There's people who are pretty fucking poor or on like assistance programs or whatever it is. And there are it's not just money, man. The biggest thing that determines that is it's like a thought process. Like the example she used, which really made it make sense for me, is this. Like when you go go have a nice meal somewhere, Jake, you and the wife, you go out and, you're in the car on the way home. The question you're probably going to ask each other is, how did it taste? Right. That's what you're going to ask about the meal. How did it taste? Oh, it was delicious. Blah, blah. That's the question you're going to ask. Whereas like this upper class, the elites, the questions they're going to ask, and this to you is going to sound weird as fuck because you're not you and I are middle class, so that's that. They ask, well, how was it presented? I'm like, fuck, who the fuck would ask that? That's ridiculous. That's outrageous.
Yeah.
And then, but the lower class, they're going to ask, did you get enough? Because they can't take that for granted. You and I take for granted that we're going to have enough food, but sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. We can't take that for granted. And as weird as that upper class thing, how well was it presented? As foreign as that is to you and I, as foreign as that is, that's how foreign how did it taste is to that lower class. And it just it kind of illustrates, again, different thinking processes, but also the necessary part of like right now. She also talks about how this she was working around this Native American like reservation. She was working around this reservation, and she was at this school and found out this family didn't have a refrigerator in their house, which you and I are like, fuck, man, like, how do you not do that?
How do you survive?
Are you camping?
How's that possible? Yeah,
exactly. It can't be done. And so the school raised some money, very on the down low. They're very discreet about it. And they bought this refrigerator, and they didn't present it to them. They did nothing. They just kind of had it delivered, and we're like, hey, this is from the school, just trying to help you out. And for the next 4 days, none of those kids were in school. And you and I are both in the same spot going, well, why the hell not? Like, that doesn't make any sense. Because you and I would be like, oh, well, maybe they found some cheap meat somewhere, so they drove way out to get a whole bunch of meat because they can put it in their freezer now or something like that. That's what you and I would do. But what they did is they sold the fridge, and they went and took a vacation because they knew that this opportunity might never come along again. So we better take advantage of it right now. And again, there's your difference in levels, right? You and I are like, okay, this can help me now. Where the lower level, they're going to sell it for you. I just told you what happens. And that upper thing, they might go, well, maybe I should sell it and invest the money in the stock that's doing really well or something, right? That's how I think. It's just it's a totally different way of thinking. So I mean, that's how I try to color the, I don't want to feel like I'm on this high horse, like I'm super fucking smart, because I'm not. I feel like I'm just a regular dude, but there are differences in how people think. To me, that's fucking interesting, man. That's philosophy and sociology. Yeah, I agree. And maybe that's your buddy. I've got a buddy like that too, who, we grew up together and all that. And he, we went to the same high school. We ended up going to the same college. We were roommates a lot, and he's one of my best friends. And he chose the route of working at a bike shop. He works at a bicycle shop, right? And I thought, well, that's a cool job if you're 16, you know what I mean? But he's still there, and we're in our 40s. And I always was like, what the fuck, dude? In my mind, I never would light him up like this, but I mean, only kind of fucking with him just for fun. But why didn't you do more, man? We all had the same background. But in his mind, but man, I just don't want to have a lot of responsibility. I don't really care much about money. I want to have a thing that I like doing, and I want to be able to punch out and go home at the end of the day. And I understand now he just looks at the world differently than I do. And that's fucking
no doubt about it.
I don't know about what's your buddy all about? What does he do? You said he's had a rough life. What's
he just made, I think, decisions that, nothing too crazy, but never got himself into a real path of like, this is what I'm doing, this is who I am. He's currently, he's unemployed, and apparently he's writing a book, but he's got a wife and 3 kids. And I'm like, that's not like, but he's kind of the over the top guy where it's like, he got a job. His brother owns a air conditioning and solar place here where, and it's huge here. And he got a salesman job. Yeah. He got a salesman job, which is like, you go to 1 or 2 to 3 house calls a day that are already set up, and you go sell. And if you sell it, you make a pretty good commission, and that's all you do. You might work for 3 hours today, 3 1-hour meetings, whatever it is. And that on the low end, like if you were bad at that job, you're making $60,000 a year. If you do the job, if you do the job decently, you're making 110, 115. If you kill it, it's a $300,000 a year job. So it's like, okay, he starts that. His wife, is like, thank God you're doing something good and whatever. And he apparently, I don't know, went to the desert, spent a few days relaxing, and came up with this vision of, I need to write a book, and quit everything. But I'm like,
hey man, chase your dreams, bro.
I tell him
it ain't gonna chase you back.
Good for you, but geez, man. I mean,
if you have a family though, dude, that's a decision that when you make that decision, hey, I'm having a family, you don't get to chase your dreams that much at that point. I mean, I don't
And
mean
you
to
know
knock
what?
your boy, but
You chase the dream of writing that book from 11 p.m. to 4 a.m. That's what you do.
right, yeah.
Otherwise, I mean, so that like stuff like that's where he's at right now, and I'm at a point where, you know, and I'm not saying my life is better than his or not. I don't truthfully knows. Maybe it's fucking amazing, and maybe he, like you said, your buddy bike shop, he loves
He's
it.
happy. He's the happiest guy I know. Truly, the happiest guy I know.
Probably less stressed than everybody you know.
Yep,
So
yep.
I won't say he's doing good or bad, but you know, I'm at a point. I'm 35. I hadn't, other than the athletic director in the school, which coaching high school baseball pays me $3,500 a year. So that's not why I'm there.
About what we get over here.
Yeah. Outside of that, that job, I've never had a boss in anything else I've done. I owned a facility here with a business partner of mine. It was a 10,000 square foot baseball facility in Carlsbad, which we killed it for 3-4 years. It was awesome. And I got bought out of there in December of last year because had enough. I was done. After Corona, we just got fucked like every other business. Our landlord said, don't give a shit, pay. And we were paying $12,000 on a $10,000 square foot building that was closed for 7 months. I'm like, that was a nice $84,000 that we just lost. So
yeah, big fat hit.
And to rebuild it after that, for me, I was like, told my partner, I go, I'm not in it, dude. We just gave it our friggin' heart and soul for 4 years, and we were getting ready to sign papers to sell it, and we would all, you know, we took money for 4 straight years and made a good living, and then we were going to all leave with probably about $100,000 in our pocket after selling it. Mm-hmm. And it was like 3 days before Corona, and the people that we met to sign the papers, and they were like, we've been watching the news. We just want to see where this Corona thing goes before we purchase.
Oh man, like, I'm sorry, dude.
And
that
then
sucks.
3 days later, everything shut down. So that, on top of spending the $85,000 stay in business, I just told my partner, I said, there's a guy that wants to buy me out for pennies on the dollar now, but fuck it, let him go. I don't have the energy, or I don't want to do it. And if I don't want to do something in my life, I will not be good at it.
Yeah, like, you know, you're not going to. I was just going to say that same thing, man. I know that if I'm not into it, it's going to suck.
It's going to be bad.
So be bad at it.
I got out of there, and, you know, I ran travel ball organizations. I had 150 kids at one point with, you know, $180 a month, and coaches and employees. And I've done a lot of things that are good. And I'm at a point now where I have a clothing company, and I'm just doing things. I've always said, I mean, to me, when I was 18 to 20, I probably had 35 different jobs that were minimum wage that I had for a week, and went, fuck it, I can't spend this is not it. I'm out.
That's high school for me. I think I had 6 W-2s in my senior year of high school.
6 W-2s for a total of $4,000. You're like, nice.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Not making shit.
Yeah. I just, you know, I've been that way. And once I started a business and made money, the one thing, and my buddy asked me that all the time. He's like, well, what did you learn? What did you get out of that? You had a baseball business, now it's gone. I said, what I got out of it was, you know, I'm a guy that my resume, the school I'm at is here since 1957. They've had a track record of good coaches, good programs. It's good. I said, I'm not really supposed to be here on paper. I said, there's probably 15 guys that applied when I did that played more than junior college baseball and whatever, probably some ex-big leaguers, probably some D1 guys that know the game maybe better than I do. I said, but I did what I needed to do to get the job. I said, and so from that, I built other businesses around baseball. And I told my buddy, I said, the one thing I learned as far as any of this was I can make money if I want to make money. Like when I don't have
it's
money,
not that elusive, man. You can. That's how I feel too. I'm running 2 different businesses right now on top of this shit. I mean, this is just for fun for me. But I've got 2 different businesses, and they both do really well. It's not that tough, dude. Working for other people, it's fucking overrated, man. You're putting in all of your time, and you're making them money. You know, working for yourself is, I mean, there's more risk there, but I don't give a shit. I don't have a family that I'm worried about. If it fails, whatever. I got money in the bank. My shit, you know, almost my stuff's paid for. Yeah, dude. Business experience is huge to get over, because most people can't, Jake, and you know it, man. Like, I've got friends that I taught with that they're scared to death to leave teaching. And I'm like, you realize that you're working harder than you'll work at any other job as a teacher, and you're making less money than you'll make at any other job. Like you really can't fuck it up. Like you can go anywhere else and do anything else, especially if you do it yourself. You know, if you start a business or go with a partner, Yeah, that's a tough mountain to climb, and you having that
It
experience already.
is.
Because when I was 35, I hadn't done that yet.
Uh-huh. Yeah, that's what I tell people. I go, I guess it's just a difference similar to like lower, middle, and high class. Like last time I ran out of money, I didn't say I need to get a job. I said I need to go get money.
Got to hustle. Yeah. Yep.
I looked at how can I go make money, not who's hiring. I didn't give a fuck who was hiring. I'm looking at, okay, I've done 4 different businesses. Do I need to go back to one and start another one in the same field?
So what are you doing now? What are you doing right now?
Right now, I do have a clothing company.
Clothing company.
Yeah, I have a clothing company, and then I do just baseball stuff. I mean, I'll do. That's kind of even. That's always been. I've always said the baseball stuff is like supplemental income. It is what it is. The time is so little. If you do a lesson, I'll do a lesson for, I don't know, 80, 90 bucks an hour. So it's like, if I want to go have, half-hour lessons, I go find 8 kids, then I'll go make 350 bucks, 400 bucks on a Saturday and be done.
Yep.
Do it again. And that's 1,600 on a month. And then I have, and that's also 16 hours of the month where I have another.
You got a lot more time.
X amount of, it's very little time for the investment, and it's something I enjoy doing. But so I do that now. I mean, with just the clothing and baseball stuff, off season, we'll put programs together and do things like that, or camps. But
so that's your company that you're rocking right there, Rough Shot, it's called.
Yeah,
that's a good time to plug your shit.
This is Rough Shot Supply Company. We're getting ready to drop our next round. I'll send you some stuff. This is one of our hats. Cool. One of our sweatshirts.
I'll send you some swag too. I got a ton of it.
There you go. Good. We'll rep each other. I like it.
Yeah, that's cool. So what else? How about tell me more about how it's these guys? Because I mean, we got to plug our own shit here. So I'll tell them, you guys on TikTok, he's Jake Savicki, and I'll put up a graphic of his name so you guys can see how to spell it. But I recommend you take some time and check his shit out. It's fucking awesome. It's hilarious. He does all kinds of different sports stuff. And then is there any other Jake like social media that you want him on? You said you do Instagram too, correct?
Yeah, I got an Instagram, which that link's in my bio of TikTok. Okay. Or it's the same thing. Jake Savicki on Instagram too. And then the link to Rough Shot is in my regular bio. So that there's an Instagram for that too. But
okay.
That brand Rough Shot for us is really kind of about
what's the feel?
Not far off from what we were just talking about. Like, it started off with this idea of like, this is going to be rough, but we're going to give it a fucking shot. Like we were talking about life in general. And so for us, it's like, it's really about kind of the athlete. And we had really the kind of line is long. There's no small punchline, but it was about, it's made for people like that would which is right in line with what we've just been talking about, that would rather, be in the limelight and fail than never be there at all. Like that's what this is for. People that go, fuck it, let's go. Let's see what happens. I'd rather be there. I'd rather experience it and lose than wonder what it would have felt like to be there. So, and anything. I mean, that's, if you look at almost all successful business people, they all got a bankruptcy story. I tell them all the time, I go, the road to riches leads through the trenches of poverty. Like that's damn right. You got to get down there and get up. So, I had a brother when I was 19 pass away, and
sorry, dude, that sucks.
Yeah, but that's a big piece of, for me, going through that, and won't get into it, but it was traumatizing. It was a bad deal all the way around.
Yeah.
Ever since then, it started off angry. I would look at somebody complaining about having a bad day or their coffee's too hot, and I'm like, fuck you, man. Like I wouldn't say that, but I think
that's what you're thinking. Yeah.
And then I learned, like, your worst, whatever you've been through, that's the worst thing that's happened to you or you've gone through.
It's the hardest thing they've ever been through.
If it's this,
the hardest thing I've been through is the hardest thing I've been through.
Yes, it's all the same. So I kind of learned that. But then what I took out of it was like, man, whatever happens, like, we're still here. I'm still alive. Like it created a fearlessness, not in some like, superhero way, but just like, I don't give a fuck if somebody thinks I'm stupid or something. I got a small circle. They love me. They know me. I love them. I'm good. If the outside people don't like it, and if there's 80,000 people on TikTok who think I'm funny, good. If somebody makes a bad comment, well, fuck you. I don't give it. I didn't make this for Joe Blow that I don't know. You know what I mean? Like,
that's right.
So I think there's and there's a big value in that too. Like that's the one thing, and you probably see this having a podcast. You know, when, not that you're searching for validation, but when you just do things like this, like I've clicked through almost a ton of your videos, and they're just you and your opinions and what you've researched, thought about, whatever it is, on all kinds of different things. And when people admire that or like that, you go, this is nice. Like
there's definitely some validation there. I'm not gonna lie.
For sure. Yeah, it feels
that
really
feels good when somebody's like, "Right on, brother." I'm like, "All right, cool."
Yeah, and it's a great feeling, and I think that's the same way with everything. Like we started a clothing company, and I was, you know, I didn't know. I'm like, nobody's gonna fucking buy this shit. And when somebody did, we were like, oh fuck, one person likes this, and then you know, you sell a few more, and it's just fun. But you do things that you believe in, and there's a market. That's the biggest thing. There's a fucking market. There's probably some lady that talks about different kind of potatoes on YouTube with 1 million followers. You're like,
people love that shit.
And they love it. So
all the potato heads love that shit. So how do you market the clothing stuff? I mean, do you have other social media for that, or how are you getting that?
We have that has an Instagram and a Facebook that we don't really use, but that has an Instagram, and we just kind of rode with Instagram. We had one release, and it was like 4 months ago, and just basically friends and family and people, and we bought a small amount of inventory, and we sold most of it, and we're stoked on it. And we kind of said, okay, now that we know and kind of look at it, let's circle back and do a spring whatever drop on, you know, the lingo of the clothing.
That's what they say. Books drop too. I learned that. Like my book drops in February. Fucking drop out of an airplane. What the fuck?
Yeah, where's it coming from? So we'll circle back probably for spring and maybe like February, get our second kind of line out there. And it's just been fun. You know, it's a creative thing. We make stuff that we think is cool, and if people like it, great. And we'll probably this time around invest the money into advertising on social media, obviously. And that's the kind of stuff you go as it's hard to, when we had known nothing about the business. Absolutely. I listened to you talk about writing a book, same shit. You wrote a book in 3 weeks, decided you want to do it. You did it. You had no idea what publisher, let me go find one. And next thing you know, you got a book. I Googled your name, and the first thing that came up was author. It's like, you didn't know what the fuck you were doing. You knew you wanted to write a book. You did it in 3 weeks and you were done. That's the same way I am. I'm like, I want to start a clothing brand.
Give it a try.
I'm going to make a couple shirts and throw them out there and see what happens. I'm not going to sit here and look at all the lines. What's the legal stuff? We did it all right. But I'm like, if I try to think about that, we'll never get this thing going. And if I worry about this design's not good enough for this name or anything, it's never going to get off the floor.
That's true.
That's the one thing that's the one thing which I actually really like listening to that, because if I could say one thing about my buddy, that's one thing he always says. He goes, I never do anything until I feel like it's perfect. I'm like, yeah. And he goes, that's what he said. He goes, I admire, and he's what he said. He goes, that's why I've never done anything. He goes, I admire you because every other 6 months you're doing something new that I didn't even know you were into. I'm like, that's because I didn't know I was into it 6 months ago. Maybe I was up at 2 a.m. and some picture inspired me, and I went, oh, I want to fucking paint. Started painting. Who knows? But I think that's the kind of stuff where the quicker you learn to just jump and learn how to fly on the way down, that's what everybody's doing anyways. You go to school for 4 years, get a degree in the field, go to get a job. You're not going to know what the fuck you're doing. I don't care how much schooling you had. It's a job that you don't know. It's new. Here we go.
Because dude, you're not afraid to fall down. I mean, it's the same shit we were talking about with the kids, you know. The more we can get them to fall down and realize, hey, that ain't that bad. You know, falling off your bike and skinning your knee. Oh, fuck, that healed. I'm going to try something bigger next time. I'm going to try, you know, that habit, dude, that's what makes you successful. I mean, define success as you will, but I mean, money's got to have a little bit of it, right? I mean, I'm happier making the money I make now than I did when I was a teacher. You know, I mean, I lived fine back then, but, you know, doing what I do now, I'm like, this is better. It's fucking better. And it's because, like you said, you just can't be afraid to take those risks. But hey, man, I don't know if you know this, but you know, here in Michigan, it's a little past 10 o'clock, and I've got actually some coaches who invited me out at 9:30 to.
Perfect.
They're not going to drink. They're not going to drink their own. They're not. You know, they won't drink themselves. I've got to help them out.
Hey, if there's beers on the table with your name, get going, man.
Fuck yeah, dude.
This was nice, man. I appreciate you taking the time. Again, I think it's I think that's a classic way for this to happen. After we've talked about just doing things, you literally commented on a picture of mine, post of mine 2 days ago. I said, you said, listen to my podcast. I said, get me on it. And here we are. So
yeah, dude,
go do it, you know?
I appreciate it, dude. And honestly, what a